Welcome to Maritime Pakistan, your gateway to the fascinating world of oceans and the opportunities they present to every one of us. Our goal is to explore the shared heritage of the seas and oceans to achieve global prosperity. Today's discussion explores the book The Sea in History, the Ancient World. Our discussion will focus on the 15th chapter, a nautical event of the 26th dynasty, the voyage of the future Divine Adoratrice Nitocris from Saïs to Thebes in the reign of Psammetichos I in 655 BC. We're going to dive into how one single, masterfully planned river journey literally helped reunite an entire ancient empire.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Egypt's Maritime Renaissance, Emerging from Civil War.
To really appreciate the sheer scale of this nautical event, we have to rewind a bit. In the mid-7th century BC, Egypt was completely fractured. Following some pretty intense conflicts with the Assyrians, the Kushite rulers of the 25th dynasty had actually retreated down south. Stepping right into this chaotic power vacuum was Pharaoh Psammetichos I. Between 664 and 656 BC, he systematically unified the fragmented delta region up in the north. But Psammetichos was smart. He knew that true peace required way more than just winning military battles in the delta. It required absolute control and the unification of the entire Nile Valley.
The divide across the nation at that time was just stark. Up in the Semitic north, which Psammetichos administered, things were rapidly modernizing. They were looking outward to the Mediterranean, building these really lucrative trade relationships with Greek merchants. But down in the Kushite south, centered around the great city of Thebes, it was a totally different story. It remained deeply traditional, functioning as this massive religious stronghold for the powerful clergy of Amun. So, to actually unite the country, the North's economic engine desperately needed to seamlessly connect with the South's religious authority.
And that brings us to Section 2, The Diplomatic Voyage, a Mission of Unity.
Now, Psammetichos couldn't exactly just march an army down into Thebes to bridge this gap, right? That would have instantly sparked another civil war. So instead, he deployed some absolutely brilliant diplomatic soft power. He sent his eldest daughter, Princess Nitocris, all the way from the northern capital of Saïs, down the river to Thebes, to be legally adopted by the current Divine Adoratrice of Amun. We actually know the magnificent details of this whole thing thanks to the Stela of Nitocris, which is an incredible ancient monument discovered in Karnak. It tells us that this massive, incredibly resource-heavy journey against the current took exactly 16 days, which, by the way, was a remarkably fast time for ancient river navigation.
But here's the real question. How do you seamlessly transport and supply an entire royal court across a deeply divided ancient nation? I absolutely love thinking about this because anyone who appreciates logistics can see that moving this fleet was just a total masterpiece of ancient planning. You have to remember, you aren't just moving one princess, you are moving a whole royal court, diplomats, military escorts, and thousands of rowers, across regions that up until very recently were totally hostile to one another. To find out how they pulled it off, let's jump into Section 3, Mastering Nile Logistics, the River Road.
The secret to surviving this journey really comes down to the man who orchestrated the whole thing, Psammetichos. He held this incredibly formidable title, Grand of Navigation. You can kind of think of him as the ultimate ancient supply chain manager. Stationed at a really critical geographic choke point in Heracleopolis, he was responsible for fleet organization, the safety of the riverbanks, and managing this sprawling network of canals. Actually, his very name translates to Tefnacht gathers the two lands, which honestly perfectly captures his role in making this unifying voyage happen.
To make sure this massive fleet literally never ran out of food during that 16-day trek, they used a brilliant rapid-fire relay system. Step 1. Fast messenger boats would sail ahead to alert the regional governors, who were known as nomarchs. Step 2. These nomarchs were legally bound to prepare strict quotas of local supplies. Step 3. The Grand Royal Fleet arrives, seamlessly docks, loads up the vast quantities of supplies, and then immediately continues heading upstream. And what exactly were they loading onto these ships? Well, the Stela of Nitocris basically gives us the ultimate ancient grocery list. We're talking absolute mountains of fresh breads, endless jars of beer, prime cuts of oxen, assorted poultry, fresh vegetables, and even sweets and herbs. It took an enormous, meticulously calculated amount of calories, and yeah, probably a whole lot of beer, to fuel those massive rowing crews day in and day out.
And trust me, they desperately needed every single one of those calories. When you think about the actual physics of Egyptian river travel, going downstream was relatively easy, right? Boats would drag a heavy stone in the water to let the deeper, faster current pull them north. But traveling upstream, exactly like Nitocris had to do to reach Thebes, that was grueling. It required strong northern winds to fill their papyrus sails, really intense synchronized rowing, and when the winds eventually died down, it literally meant towing the boats by ropes from the riverbanks.
Moving right along to Section 4, the Royal Fleet revealed decoding the Karnak reliefs. Our primary visual evidence of this incredible fleet actually comes from carved stone blocks at the Temple of Mut in Karnak. They act almost like these ancient archaeological puzzle pieces. They show us majestic ships like the vessel of Amun, which was gleaming with a gold-covered ram's head prow. But right behind it is the true marvel of the fleet, the great vessel of Saïs, featuring 10 rows of rowers and this really elegant central cabin supported by Hathoric columns. The ancient iconography makes it super clear that this ship was explicitly designed to carry a highly esteemed female dignitary, almost certainly Princess Nitocris herself.
But hey, a royal princess doesn't just travel alone. Beyond the gilded royal barges, the fleet completely relied on a train of massive, flat-bottomed cargo ships just to carry the immense physical weight of the expedition. The Karnak reliefs actually list the exact dimensions for us. Some of these cargo ships were up to 45 cubits long and 23 cubits wide. That is a huge surface area. They were constructed of local acacia wood, specifically engineered to haul all the heavy supplies, the livestock and the diplomatic gifts required for the ceremony.
And speaking of those gifts, it wasn't just the north bringing all the wealth. Cargo was actually flowing from the south to meet them too. We're talking large red oxen, turtle doves, fine fabrics, and even notched palm stems that priests used for astronomy. This all served as a really important symbolic tribute. It showed that the South was actively participating in reuniting the kingdom and warmly welcoming their new spiritual leader.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, a unified prosperity, opening the Mediterranean.
The economic fallout of this 16-day voyage was just immense. It wasn't just a fancy religious ceremony. It was an absolute geopolitical masterstroke. By securing the river from the deep south all the way up to the Mediterranean delta, Psammetichos I created a safe, incredibly reliable trade corridor. He effectively ended coastal piracy, invited Greek and Ionian merchants to set up thriving trading ports, and sparked a massive era of global maritime prosperity. This single journey was the linchpin connecting deep African trade routes directly to the booming Mediterranean economy. And you know, securing supply chains like that is a principle that's just as absolutely vital today as it was back then.
It really leaves us to wonder, if a single, highly secure river voyage could ignite an ancient economic boom like that, what modern maritime routes hold the key to our future global prosperity? We hope that you liked today's explainer. Please share your comments and subscribe to explore other similar opportunities. Post your questions in the comments section for future explainers.